Anatomy of a Phenomena, Part 3. A Social Studies Report for Grade 10 by Lloyd and WSJ. Early settlers to the region would have learned of the floaters from the local Indians, but would have dismissed them as pagan superstitions until a series of events around the village of Proudfoot's Hollow made them rethink their conclusions. Proudfoot's Hollow was established in 1827, when George Chalmers established both a saw and a grist mill on the 16 at Dundas Crossing, the current site of Lyons Valley Park. Chalmers sold his businesses to John Proudfoot, who gave the hamlet its name. Official histories say the village declined after the coming of the railroad to Oakville in 1855, but folklore tells a different tale. In the early spring of 1838, at a time the countryside was convulsed by the after effects of the rebellion, a girl by the name of Mary Ross was walking to the home where she was working as a servant after visiting her parents' farm. As she made her way along the path leading down to the village, a face, or head, darted at her from behind the nearby trees. After hypnotizing her with its fiery red eyes, the head began to kiss her face, its lips burning like a flame. The young girl ran from the scene screaming, while the head bobbed away in the darkness. Searchers summoned to the scene could find no trace of it. In 1843, an older woman and her pregnant daughter were badly frightened when a hideous human head, shrieking like a banshee, flew at them from out of the darkness as they were returning from a visit to the nearby village of Palermo. The daughter, unfortunately, later miscarried. Later that year, one Brewster, the village watchman, fired upon what he said was a discombobulated head that had come flying at him from out of the tombstones in the churchyard, and which had swooped down at him like a night owl. The guard was accused of drinking and later dismissed. But after the watchman's dismissal, his story was given more credence when a white devil's head came plunging out of the darkness to attack the driver of a westbound stagecoach as it neared Palermo. The Jehu nearly lost control and narrowly avoided winding up in the ditch. A few of the passengers suffered minor injuries, but were attended to at the nearby tavern, where the driver, who was generally regarded as a sober man, had occasion to medicate himself with several draughts of strong drink. It appears a state of near panic broke out among the small and often isolated villages, with armed patrols walking the dark and silent streets. It was only a matter of time before a tragedy occurred. On the unusually balmy night of January the 3rd, 1845, a former soldier named William Smith saw a white shape which appeared to be floating among the tombstones of the churchyard in the hollow. Imagining it to be a floating object or head, he yelled for the apparition to halt. When it failed to do so, he fired a load of buckshot at it, at which point the pale orb vanished from sight. Taking a dark lantern, the armed men found the corpse of Robert Stevenson, a local farmhand who had also been among the search party, but who had wandered off on his own. Smith was charged with the death and stood trial at the assizes, but was acquitted and released. But the death of Robert Stevenson was nothing compared to the sensation caused by the discovery of a headless body in early July of 1847 on the banks of the 16 north of the hollow. The body, which was apparently naked, was that of a male lying on its back in amongst the shrubbery. It was discovered by some children out berry picking. What was disturbing to the constabulary in those pre-forensic days was the condition of the corpse, which appeared to be asleep rather than dead. There were no obvious signs of decapitation, but a gaping hole, which, nevertheless, did not appear to be a fresh wound, at the end of the neck. The body was never identified, but it was noted that a farmhand, a slovenly individual named Petr, had disappeared. Various rumors of flying heads or devils and of headless bodies were whispered at isolated firesides throughout the 19th century, and, No doubt, a number of pranks and practical jokes added to the overall mystery. Another popular legend dates to the time of the Fenian Troubles. The story goes like this. A member of the militia was on sentry duty along the Dundas Road when he saw something approaching him through the thick darkness of the moonless night. He demanded that his assailant identify himself, only to have the head of Beelzebub come flying out of the murk to smite him in the face. The soldier struck the head with his fists and then tried to bat it with his rifle, but it flew off into the woods at tremendous speed and vanished from sight. The sentry never had a chance to fire his weapon. The satanic connection can be seen in the incident described as the Devil's Kisses. On the night of July 8th to the 9th, 1875, Halton County was threatened by thunderstorms, which filled the night air with both electricity and anticipation. Witnesses in a number of communities, including Oakville, Bronte, and Palermo, reported terrifying encounters with decapitated heads, which harassed them as they made their way down the darkened country roads, nipping, biting, and even kissing them. Others, especially young women, reported floating heads which would hang outside their bedroom windows and even press their lips against the glass. 9 months later, the county experienced an epidemic of unwed pregnancies. This report to be continued.